what's going on, guys? Bflattened here with a brand new build video today. This is Erose Moze. Now Eros is going to be working off of radiation and corrosion damage. The term Eros is there for meaning of gnawing of the skin, usually with a bite. Radiation and corrosive on the skin though, yeah, it's going to be biting the skin. So this is going to be all corrosion, this is going to be radiation damage, and there's also going to be hints of cryo damage as well. Let's get right into the build, shall we? So we're going to start off with our skill trees. I use the green tree a little bit for support. We have Cloud of Lead. The shots that we do are going to be doing fire damage every 4th shot, and they won't have any consumption of ammo. Redistribution, every time we get a crit we regen ammo and HP. And Scrappy, whenever we're moving we do weapon damage, weapon swap, and mode switch speed. The most important ones here is the weapon damage and the weapon swap. Primarily in blue tree we do fire in the Skag's Den. Whenever we do splash damage we do bonus fire damage. Means of destruction, whenever we do splash we do ammo chance and grenade chance. Cross promo for extra splash damage and splash radius to double. Pull the holy pin, this is going to be extremely important with some of our build here. We have grenades doing crits. Auto bear, so that we can just have bear be a distraction. Vampires, so that we can have our grenades heal us. Why can't I carry all these grenades? For grenade capacity. Again, grenades are going to be super important for this build. To the last, we can throw grenades in fight for our life. And short fuse, whenever we do gun damage, we have a chance of a secondary explosion for more explosion damage centered on the target. Red tree, a lot of red tree as well. Security bear, this is just going to double up with auto bear. Armored infantry for damage reduction and gun damage. This is going to be really important as well. I don't really use this one too often, but I needed to move down the tree, so I threw 2 points in here. Thin red line, this is going to be reserving our HP and throwing it into our shield. Really important with our bloodletter setup. Drowning in brass is going to be important for having our kill steals, gaining us stacks of drowning in brass. We can have up to 3, and our fire rate is reduced, but we gain increased gun damage. Experimental munitions, whenever Moze or Iron Bear scores a crit, they do bonus fire damage. It's any type of crit, so pull the holy pin can also proc this. Desperate measures, we have a max roll of desperate measures on the bloodletter, so Moze's gun damage and Iron Bear's weapon damage are increased up to 100%. And finally, Feling's Doctrine is super overpowered. After killing an enemy, we get a stack of this thing. There's no stack limits. For every stack of it, we get more shield and gun damage, and every 1 stack lasts 30 seconds. This thing is super overpowered. I don't use Iron Bear a lot in this, but I have the shock and corrosive railguns equipped and attached. So into the build, this is going to be the mobbing build, and then there's a hybrid version that's there for bossing. The mobbing build isn't very good for bossing, and the hybrid version that is set for bosses is actually fairly good for bosses. So I'm using 2 face punchers on this build. One of them is a 50-150 with URAD, because we have melee damage, and also the URAD is going to be taking over with this. It's going to combo up with a few of our gear, so this is really nice just for some damage. Speed loading Hellwalker, this is just going to be good for all round, all purpose kind of things. URAD, fire, second highest base damage done in the game. Super nice with Moze. And a melee face puncher, so that we can apply terror with ourselves. And a shock light show, just in case I need to melt off shields really quickly, like the Valkyries for example, or anything with a really big heavy tanky shield. So the rerouter, when fully charged, the next shot drains 50% shields to do 120% bonus amp damage and return it as health. So basically what we're doing, the interaction with this, we shoot our gun when we have full shield. We do 120% bonus amp damage, and then we return that back as health. So with the bloodletter, instead of healing our HP, because we don't do that, we heal our shields instead. So we give ourselves our shield a 50% discount on our shield, and then we return it as HP, and sector goes back into our shield. So that we're constantly proccing these 2 back and forth, so that we can keep gaining amp, gaining shield, gaining amp, gaining shield, that sort of interaction. And of course we have a cloning maddening tracker. This is going to be just in case we need the extra passive healing with vampire, and it's also going to be a source for scoring crits, which also procs a few of our skills. But the passive anoint on it is also really good. Every time we reload, we consume all terror stacks that we have, and we create a Nova that deals cryo damage, and it's a cryo Nova that's a little bit less than the Frozen Heart, and it can freeze. However, it mostly kills before it freezes and has a chance to. We have a Knife Drain White Elephant for area of effect damage, melee damage, and action skill cooldown rate. Action skill cooldown rate does not matter. The area of effect damage does for the Novas and for the radiation explosions that we're going to be doing with our 5150. And the area of effect damage and melee damage are going to be nice because of our face puncher that's going to be swinging with us. Now the hybrid version, if you want to go and switch into a boss, what you want to do is you want to take off your read router and throw in an old god so you can get the shock and radiation. You enter and exit Iron Bear so you get your shock and radiation together. And then instead of using any of the face punchers, you can use a light show, you can use a hell walker. You swap out your grenade and you want to throw on a Vindicator gas call because it's going to be super good for corrosive stuff. Like if you're facing Wotan or the Valkyries, this is going to melt their armor. And it also can score crits. And it can also heal you with Vampire because it's not a Merv, it just splits. It's a divider. So for that, it's able to heal you. And you want to switch off your Knife Drain Elephant for something Atom Bomb, Deathless related. Meg size, area of effect damage, radiation is usually your go-to. And you can swap out this Blood Litter for another Blood Litter that I have on this build for splash damage, weapon damage, and heavy weapon damage. Instead of the splash radius and melee damage, that's going to be working with the mobbing build. So here's a little bit of the mobbing version of this build. I want to make sure that I have my right face puncher on. So this is our melee gaining face puncher. And what we want to do is we just want to shoot a couple enemies just to gain our terror stacks. So we consume terror because we reloaded. And what we want to do is we want to get a little close so that our Novas can go off, blow up our enemies, throw a couple of our cloning maddening trackers just so we can get some more passive healing. Now the important part about this is watching and paying attention to our shield, and that's super important because we want to keep on proccing the rerouter as often as possible. There's the Nova that can freeze, it does have the potential for it. Now that little high-pitched noise can get rather annoying. That's the Knife Drain. Knife Drain is the artifact that's going to be healing us on melee, and it makes a high-pitched whining sound that's really annoying. My recommendation is, if you don't want to hear that constantly in your ears like a high-pitched dog whistle, just go into your sound settings and turn that off, and it's nice and easy to get rid of it. But yeah, no, watching and paying attention to the shield is very important. You can hear that notification, that sound effect, that tells you that your next shot is going to be amped. You do have your rerouter ready to go for a bit more damage. Now if you want to keep with the mobbing build but you don't want to do the Nova and terror stuff, you can easily just switch over to your face puncher with URAD and start doing some radiation explosions too. It works just as well, especially if you're facing a Frostbite, because the Frostbite won't be taking any of the Nova damage, so you gotta be worried about the Frostbites. They won't take any Nova damage. The good part about this is that we're also placing white elephant bombs on here as well. We have 14 pellets to do it, so you're almost guaranteed to plant your elephant bombs on there as well. Now, the reason why we're getting so much shield with the rerouter is all going into Phalanx Doctrine that we were talking about earlier. The more that we're killing enemies and the faster that we're killing enemies, the more that we're getting those stacks that are infinitely stacked, because there is no stack limit. We get shield, we get damage, we get shield, we get damage, and those last for 30 seconds. So it really helps more if you're using the Nova version of this build, because the Novas have a chance to kill far more enemies if you're in a nice big group like this over here. I'm actually going to swap over to it so we can get more damage and more explosions through. Oh, there's a Frostbite. Now we can do the melee damage to him. And the elephants The elephant bombs are going to be blowing him up. The only thing he's not going to be taking damage from is the reloading cryo novas. Those are doing a lot of damage too, because we have a lot of area of effect damage coming through. This thing for mobbing, near flawless. It is perfect. You might struggle with this build mobbing in the takedowns. You can do normal takedowns with no issues, no problems. It's the one thing it'll struggle with is the guardian takedown on true takedown, because you don't do, I just don't find that you do enough to the enemies during the crystal phase. Everything else though, totally fine, totally fun to play around with. Once we get to Chupacabratch, then we'll swap over to Trant. Actually, we can just go to Trant now. So this is just how the mobbing build works. You swap between both your face punchers, you do your reload for cryo damage, and the other one is just 5150 if you want to blow up frostbites with no problems and do radiation explosions. It's great. I'm going to meet you guys over at Trant, and I'm going to show you the other version of this build, how the boss version works for it. So I will see you guys over at Trant. Alright, so now that we're over at Trant, what we're going to do is we're going to swap over to the boss version of this build. You can pick any old god that you want, it doesn't really matter, as long as you have some sort of action skill end and element, because you want to hop in and hop out of your bear as quickly as possible. We're going to just swap over to everything that we need for it. We have our other bloodletter, we have our atom bomb deathless, we want a vindicator gas call. That's pretty much it. Everything else is fairly standard. I think what we're going to do for Trant here is we're going to be swapping between the light show and the Hellwalker. This kind of has a reminiscence to Atomic Moze a little bit. However, it also has the melee version so that you can get ghosts to spawn for you. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show off the ghosts on one of the kills. So we'll start off with this one. Okay, so in the bear, we could just railgun him right now, but that's not fun. So we'll hop out, gain some terror, and I blew myself up because the splash damage of the gas calls is massive. Thankfully to the last, we can just keep on throwing nades here all day and we'll be fine. Kind of shows and displays a little bit about Flak Stellington here. You can just keep on chucking nades, except for Flak Stellington. Flak Stellington can't regen grenades like Moze can. Moze, as long as we're hitting crits in some way, shape, or form, we're just going to be constantly regenning grenades. This especially shows when we're facing enemies like Valkyries, because we do a ton of damage to Valkyries due to the corrosion damage that we're doing and swinging for constantly. The other thing that the gas calls can do on this build, as I mentioned earlier, the gas calls can heal you. So it's super important to pay attention to using the gas calls kind of like a Vindicator, or using the gas calls kind of like a cloning maddening tracker, because they can heal you. The corrosion to the shield isn't really doing a lot, but for a grenade, that's honestly not too bad. Reloading isn't going to make us consumer stacks at all, so we can freely swap between anything that we really want to. The light show there, for example, or the Hellwalker when he goes to his HP phase. You have the option between the hybrid of this build to really take out anything that you want. This old god rolls in recharge and health, but however, there is a old god in here with capacity and booster if you need. If you don't want to play with the rerouter during the mobbing build, you can use the one-shotter shield because it also has the melee to apply, and of course it's the drain 20% shield for 100% weapon damage also works. Snowshoe for action skill start if you want to do that. Snowshoe with shield break. Nova burner for more novas if you want it for entering and exiting bear. Bunch of different rerouters to play with. This backpack is stacked and it can do all different versions of hybrids for you. There's some Bloodstar Beasts, there's some Flippers to play with. Play around with it, but those are the two main builds for this: mobbing and bossing. Guys, this is Erose Moze. My name is Bflattened. I'm signing on out of here. Take care, all. Laters.